Are you thinking about getting married? Are you engaged and preparing for the big day?
If so, today is a must video for you and your fiance. We'll give you the 10 questions you need to have a voice about and discuss before getting married.
Welcome to I Have a Voice, because we want you to have a voice. Hi, I'm HollyKem Sunseri, and this is my husband, Dean, and let's get started. The first thing we need to discuss is, what is your financial condition? Like, what do you have? What do you own? How much cash do you have? Do you have any investments? Do you have any savings? Or are you in debt? You have $50,000 in student loans. You have $30,000 in credit cards. What's your financial status is? What are we looking at here? And then what is your present salary or income? Like, what's coming up? So each person needs to bring this to the table. What do I have? No hidden stuff here, because this is one thing people get really not good. Divorce. I mean, when we have hidden stuff. So you want to bring everything to the table. Money is a big issue.
Yeah. I mean, I've had clients before come in and they've got married and somewhere down the road, they realized that their partner had, $35,000 in credit card debt that they didn't know about. So make sure we put everything on the table and we say, this is the financial condition. This is what I have. This is what I don't have. This is how much I'm making, and to be real transparent about that. Second question, do you want children? And if so, how many? If your spouse wants 12 children and you only want one, it's an issue there.
Right. Or if you can't have children and your spouse really wants children, that becomes something that we need to have a voice about, and we need to communicate about that. Are we willing to adopt? Are we going to be foster parents? Things can happen that you're not aware of, but if you know at this point, to put children on the table and start to discuss that. Just maybe you don't know exactly, but you need to just start having a voice about it so y'all can discuss it, because it's a big deal.
Yeah. Let's get into the third question.
What is your relationship with your parents like? Are you primary caretakers if you grew up with your grandparents? Is it distant? Are you really, really close? It's very healthy. Are you enmeshed where it's just you too close and they make all your decisions for you? You need to discuss your relationship and how that works with your parents. And are you a real family person and you want to spend every Sunday with them? Maybe your spouse grew up and is an only child and you've got 5 siblings and they're not used to all of that. So you need to really discuss, how do you see your relationship with your parents at that moment?
Yeah. There's two really extremes that you want to be sensitive to. One is what we would say isolation, where there's real distance, where, we have no conversation or totally cut off from the siblings or their parents for whatever reason. That's one extreme. The other extreme, which you need to be sensitive to, is what we call enmeshment. Right? That me and my partner want to go buy a car, but I need to check and see what color my mother or my dad wants us to buy, right? Or if they're overly involved in the family system and there's not proper separation, that may look like it's really close, but it can cause problems down the road. So you want to know, if you're on one of the extremes, you need to talk about it and really look at what does it look like to have normal, close relationship with your family.
Right.
Let's get into the fourth question you need to discuss. What are your career ambitions in the next 5 years? Do you want to be an employee and work for a company and work your way up? Do you want to own your own business? Do you not have really career ambitions? Do you want to sit on the sofa all day and let your spouse support you, right, and be a bum? Well, that's okay if you both agree to it, but you really need to know. And I find that this is really important in a sense that you need to share your dreams, right?
Right.
We call that true self-work. Like you have to create a vision for the future. But that you need to sit down and say, this is where I would like to be. It could always change, but in 5 years. We were fortunate that we did that sort of spontaneously on our honeymoon, huh?
I mean, we had already discussed that prior to our honeymoon, like what we wanted. But on our honeymoon, we made a decision that we were going to make a vision board in the sense of a plan of what were our dreams and then how we were going to go about getting that done.
Yeah, I still remember. I said, what would you like to do? And you said, I want to write a book.
I said, I want to write a book.
I said, how are you going to do that? You're dyslexic, you know? And she said, well, that's why I got you.
That's right.
And so we had no idea exactly what we wanted to write a book on, and we ended up writing a roadmap to the soul.
Right.
But that was us. We casted a vision. We came together, and that became a common ambition. And that was really one of the intelligent things we did at the beginning of our marriage that seemed to work.
Very creative.
Yeah. The fifth question.
Yeah, the fifth question. We need to talk about your past and your present. What are your top 3 bad behaviors? This would be your protector stuff that we talk about. What are the 3 unhealthy coping mechanisms that you've had in the past? Maybe addictions, procrastination, overspending. What is it that has stopped you from being all that you can be? And you may not be doing this anymore, but it's something that you did in the past. Maybe you smoked cigarettes, or you abused alcohol at some point, or you were gambling. Just put that on the table, that this is something that you have struggled with and you've overcome, or this is something that's on the table now that you smoke cigarettes and you would like to make a plan to get off of them. But put that out there.
Yeah, it's so important to know what your weaknesses are and to share that with your partner. If you went to treatment at 18 years old for marijuana use and you've been clean for a number of years, that's a wonderful thing. But you need to disclose that in case you have a slip, in case you go back. I think that it's important to know what the tendencies are. And they might be addictive behaviors, but it could also be behaviors that are just unhealthy that you see. You're a procrastinator, right? And you put things off to the last minute, or you tend to spend too much money and you're not really disciplined in spending. So we want you to share with your partner the top 3 bad habits that you have now, have had in the past, and let that become a discussion.
Yeah, I was going to just say here that one of the things before Dean and I got married is that I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I've been sober 40 years now, and we've been married 31. Is that before we got married, I wanted a commitment from him that if I did relapse, that he would promise to put me in treatment and get me help for 6 months. And then after that, if he wanted to leave, then I understood, because I had broke the vow of taking care of myself, because I needed to know that he loved me enough to help me get the help that I needed. And then if I messed the relationship up, then that was the consequence I'd have to pay. So there's things like that you can put in place before the marriage, because I wanted him to know that I'm really serious about wanting to stay sober and all that. And by the grace of God.
And you have.
And I have. Yes, I have.
Thank the Lord.
Thank the Lord. You're right. For you and everybody else.
The 6th question that you need to discuss is practicing religion important to you, and how would you like to practice it?
Right.
Oftentimes in our early on, like 20, sometimes you pull away from what you were raised up, and then you may re-enter at some point.
Especially when you have kids.
Yeah, when you have kids, that becomes a big question. But it's really important to discuss how important is your spiritual walk, your connection with God, and how would you like to practice it? I mean, obviously, if you grew up Catholic, your partner grew up Baptist, you're going to need to sort out, and you're both interested in practicing where we're going to do that, how we're going to raise our kids, to come to some level of agreement. It even becomes a little more strained if you're Christian and you're marrying someone that's Jewish.
Right.
And they may want their child to have a bar mitzvah or whatever. Right. So you have to sort out those things. And then it also, another level of it is if there's no interest in growing spiritually.
Right.
If one partner is very interested in growing spiritually, the other is more agnostic or atheistic, that's a really important issue, because we've seen over the years couples be torn apart because of the disagreement in this area.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I had worked with a couple that one was Jewish and one was Christian, and they're still married. And I mean, this is 30-something years ago. So it's not that it can't be done. It definitely can be done, but it needs to be discussed, because they made those decisions early on how they were going to raise their children if they had children.
Yeah, they went through it. Mm-hmm. So the 7th question.
On the scale of 1 to 10, how good are you expressing your emotion? 1 being horrible, 10 being awesome. And
well, let me say something about that.
Okay.
You have always been very high on the scale.
Thank you.
Yeah. But what do you think I was when we got married? 1 to 10.
Probably a 5 in the
5.
sense that it wasn't that you didn't know your emotions. It was that you didn't like to have a voice about your emotions. That you would rather isolate and go deal with them and make them go away without really sharing them with me because you didn't want to upset me, or you were angry and you didn't feel that anger was appropriate. So you not just want to go calm down where you can communicate it properly. You just wanted it to isolate and go away,
Yeah.
which was not an option for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right.
And that's changed over the years too. I've grown in that.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I think it's real important to get a sense of where your partner is, because if they're really
Right.
low on the scale, I mean, this is probably one of the top issues that couples come in.
Oh, yeah. This is what people call communication issues, that you never communicate with me. And when they sit in my office, they're communicating just fine. But the thing is that there has to be a lot of emotional safety to be able to share your emotions. And I mean, that's the work that we do in a roadmap to the soul and the voices work, is that you really need to be able to identify your wounded self versus your protective self versus your true self, because you could all feel different about something. That's when we give double messages.
Yeah.
So emotional health's everything to me, because if your world's falling apart and you can't handle your emotions, you'll destroy yourself.
What we've found in therapy is that it's not what happens to you that becomes the problem. It's how you handle what happens to you, how you debrief, how you express, how you heal from emotional difficulties.
That's
and
right.
so if you really learn how to communicate your emotions well, you can get through anything, really.
Right. And things are going to happen.
And things are going to
I
happen.
mean, you're not going to be on this earth and things don't happen.
We also have done a video on emotional intelligence. You can find it in our playlist. So look around for that if that's something you need to grow in. Let's go to question number 8. What are the top 3 challenges or painful events you've experienced in your life?
Yeah.
This is going a little deeper.
Yeah, but you're
it's-
marrying somebody.
Yeah, it's very important. What are the top 3 challenges or painful events you have experienced in your life? We call it the wounded child.
Right.
And wounded child is the part of us that carries our emotional pain about events that have happened after the events are over. So if a person got in a bad car accident and it was raining and they were on the I-10 and they get real anxious every time it rains, well, that's what we would call the wounded child
Right.
coming up, because it's being triggered by the symbol of the raining and driving a car.
Right.
Right? So we've all experienced challenges in our life. As we were just saying in the last question, it's not the challenges that's the big deal.
Right.
It's how we debrief and deal with the challenges.
Right.
Oftentimes as therapists, that's what we help people do, is let go of past experiences that they've had that are still coloring the present.
Right.
And then we call that the wounded child lens. That if I was betrayed by a girlfriend and she betrayed me and went off with someone else, and today, which is not the case, but if I was constantly suspicious of my wife cheating on me, even though
Right.
she's very full of integrity and honest and faithful, and I'm constantly barraging her, why did you do this? Where did you go? Why were you 10 minutes late? Who are you texting to? I'm seeing her, what? Through the lens of this past experience.
Right.
It's not about her today. So when you reflect on that, how many of our relationship issues are caused by I'm seeing a person through the lens of what happened yesterday
Right.
and not what's happening today? So it is important to create some awareness and discuss with your partner the top 3 challenges or painful events that you've experienced in your life.
Definitely.
Let's go to the 9th question.
Yeah. In your past love relationships, what is emotionally unfinished? It's like, what's my baggage? What is unfinished business? What's left over? So if you've been through a divorce, there's always going to be baggage. There's always going to be stuff. Unless you don't have children, the possibility of having no contact at all. But if you have children, there's always going to be unfinished business. So that needs to be on the table. But there could be some old relationships that, emotionally you still have some stuff left over, and that needs to be put on the table. It doesn't mean that you want to leave and go be with them. It doesn't mean, but there could be some real hurts there, and you want to put those on the table.
Yeah, it's 2 sides. I mean, the 2 things that color how I see my spouse today is perhaps our are being raised in our family of origin, and secondly, the love relationships that we've had.
Right.
And if they've been great and we have them no longer, that's one issue that needs to be dealt with, because I need to grieve and let go.
Right.
If they've been painful and it's been unresolved, I've been betrayed, I've been treated misfairly, I've been abused,
Right.
that needs to be dealt with and let go. If I don't do those two things, then I won't be able to fully give my heart
Right.
to my spouse. And that's what we want for you. We want you to be able to fully give your heart to your fiance, for y'all to have a real connection, to create a oneness. And the point of these questions is to clear out, right?
Yeah.
The
definitely.
stuff that keeps you from being able to love purely.
Right. You want to be your true self. When you get married, you want your true self to marry your partner's true self. The problem is that what happens is we get triggered, our wounds come up, and then our protectors come out, and then those are the two people in the long term that ends up living in our houses. And so I didn't marry your protector, your coping mechanisms, and you didn't marry mine, but we surely want to divorce each other's protectors. So if we really work through that and get to a place where I understand what's my emotionally unfinished business, then all of a sudden I can do some better filtering, and I can communicate better for myself and ask my partner for support.
Yeah, these questions are really about you having a voice. I mean, that's one of our mantras. Have a voice.
Have a voice.
You need to have a voice. And you put some of these things on the table, it really helps you create a stronger foundation. Let's go to the 10th question you need to discuss. The S question.
How often do you want to have sex? This is a big question because people don't put this on the table, but the first one and the 10th one are the two that people fight about the most: money and sex.
Money, sex, and religion in the middle.
Oh, yeah. So sex is, does your partner want to have sex every day? And you may have sex every day in the beginning, but then life happens, children happen, and I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but it's likely that it's not going to happen. And then a lot of times when you get married, you love in 1,000 ways. I mean, there's so many ways that you love in a relationship, and sex is just one of them. It's very important, but it's one. So a lot of times that's the one that gets left by the wayside. And if there's no sex, then becoming one, it really damages the relationship in the sense that you don't have the closeness that happens from sex, because there's an emotional closeness that happens when you have intercourse.
Yeah. And, you just need to know where your partner is. I mean, if your partner's thinking like once or twice a year and the other partner's thinking 3 or 4 times a day, it's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem, yeah.
So it needs to be talked about. I mean, sex in a relationship, I know we've done a lot of premarital counseling over the years. Sex is something that oftentimes is done, but very little talking about it oftentimes. And that we want to give you permission to just talk about it, to have a voice. This is what I see in the future of what I would like or what I or would not like, and to just make it a topic of discussion so that y'all can understand where the other person's coming from.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, so we have a resource. If you want a copy of the questions, you click on the link below in the description, and I'll send you the 10 questions so you can have it in hand form and you can go over it with your fiance. So the 10 questions to discuss with your fiance before you get married, just click that link in the description. And we also did a video recently on the 5 keys to a healthy marriage. Right. We want you really to have a healthy marriage. We're committed to wanting to do whatever we can to help you really have a strong marriage bond. I mean, that's one of our life's passions. So if that's something you want to grow in, click on this video now and we will
see you in the next video. Have a voice.
Have a voice. God bless.